very warm welcome to all our viewers. Welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our show bringing you all the latest news and events happening all around the African continent. My name is Angie Meher and I'll be joining you. As usual, we'll begin straight away with some of the news making the headlines, and we begin with a meeting which was held in Cairo to review some proposals that would contribute to increasing trade countries. During the meeting, officials said Egypt's exports to African countries have surged by 13% between January and October of 2023, reaching a total of $6 billion. We have more details in this report.
Cairo said Egypt's exports to African countries surged by 13% between January and October 2023, reaching a total of $6 billion. This was discussed during a meeting between the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Mustafa Madbouli, where they explored strategies to enhance Egypt's trade relations with African countries. Ahmed Samir said it is noteworthy that Egypt holds the largest share of intra-trade within the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. He said that in 2022, the trade volume between Egypt and COMESA countries reached its highest level, totaling $4.3 billion. He said that to expand the presence of Egyptian exports in African markets, Egypt was among the early adopters of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. During the meeting, Samir presented proposed strategies for establishing comprehensive Egyptian commercial centers in Africa. He said these plans leverage the resource of a Nasr company for export and import, which possesses assets in multiple African countries. In Kenya, the plan is to utilize a 2,100 square meter plot owned by a Nasr company in Nairobi, the capital, to establish an Egyptian logistics center. This center, he said, will cater specifically to storage and handling services for Egyptian exports. For Tanzania, the ministry proposed the establishment of an Egyptian commercial center in Dar es Salaam, emphasizing the importance of warehouses to facilitate the availability of Egyptian goods in the area. In November, the Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics, CAPMAS, reported a 15.6% increase in Egypt's exports to COMESA countries in 2022, reaching $3,544 million compared to $3,066 million in 2021.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. It's a very good afternoon to you, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. Ambassador?
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you very much for joining us. Now, Mr. Ambassador, Cairo said that Egypt's exports to African countries have surged by 13% between January and October of this year, reaching a total of about $6 billion. How do you read these numbers, sir?
I wonder if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Your Excellency, I'm with you on the line. Can you hear us? Ambassador Gamal?
I can't hear you through the phone. I hear you through the television set.
Right. Apologies, Your Excellency. We will try and get you back on the phone, hopefully with a better connection. And let's move on to another report till we fix our lines. The 10th High-Level Seminar on Peace and Security in Africa opens Sunday in northwest Algeria. Egypt's Deputy Assistant Foreign Minister of African Organizations, Mohamed Gaber Abou Wafa, attended the seminar, as well as several ministers and officials from several African nations. Let's have more details in this report.
Egypt took part in the 10th High-Level Seminar on Peace and Security in Africa, which opened on Sunday in Oran, northwest Algeria. Egypt's participation was represented by Deputy Assistant Foreign Minister for African Organizations, Mohamed Gaber Abou Wafa, and several ministers and officials from African countries, members of the African Union, took part in the meeting. Abou Wafa said the symposium's participants explored the best ways to achieve effective, distinguished, and influential African diplomacy for the maintenance of security and stability on the continent. He said the symposium aims to amplify the voice of the African bloc in the UN Security Council, the highest multilateral international body concerned with peace and security, and to take new steps towards updating the African vision of the founding fathers of the Continental Organization. He said it also seeks to work together to give due weight to Africa's perspective to find solutions to African problems.
Right, welcome back. And now we're delighted to be joined over the telephone by His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us. I'm very well indeed. And today we're discussing a meeting that was held in Cairo, reviewing some proposals to contribute of an increase in trade exchange between Egypt and other African countries. And Cairo has said that Egyptian exports to African nations in the period between January and October of 2023 has reached a total of $6 billion US. How do you read these figures so far, Your Excellency?
Not enough. Not enough. And I have a small experience in Africa. And my advice, I can summarize it in one sentence. If you want to trade with Africa, you have to invest in Africa. Why? Because all the production of Africa is dominated by foreign companies, especially from Europe. So I tried to buy timber, wood, in exchange with some Egyptian merchandise. You can't, because all the forest in the country, I was representing my country there, is dominated by European countries. If you want to buy Cameroonian wood, for instance, you have to buy it from Paris or Rome or wherever. Then if you want to invest, if you want to trade in such merchandise, you have to go with a very small sum of investment, some tools, some tractors, and then you cut your own wood and you take it. Less than 1/4 of the price in Europe. This is one side. If you want to import fruit or vegetables from Africa, you can't, because they don't have the way and the means of refrigerating or such things. You have to go, you establish a small factory to produce canned food. I have my experience. I got some 2 containers with Egyptian canned food, and I had the right to sell it to my colleagues in the diplomatic corps. And I kept some boxes. I sent it as a present to some officials. The Prime Minister of Cameroon, Shimon Assidachou, called me and he said, I am not thanking you. I congratulate you. I didn't know that Egypt is producing such things. Come and teach us how to do that. So again, I say, the secret is, if you want to trade with Africa, you have to invest in Africa. It's not billions of dollars, some few millions of dollars would do the job.
Absolutely.
Maybe this is one track. Another that really we enjoyed very much, what happened lately since our president took the chairmanship position of Africa, 2019, and there we enlarged the semester group, which was 21 countries, to cover the whole continent, 51 countries, and with a population of 2,000 million inhabitants. This is the largest market in the whole world in number. So let us work on this. Let us give our experience. Let us make the Africans see that it is their own country, it is their own production, and we start to see early what we can exchange. And I am sorry to tell you that we don't have enough commercial representatives in Africa, and we think that we save money like that. Every commercial office in any place, it earns money enough to cover its expense and to create more and more trade and investment. This is the way I see it in Africa, and I think I am not the only one who's saying that.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, it's noteworthy to mention that Egypt holds one of the largest shares of intra-trade with the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, known as COMESA. The importance of trade between Egypt and COMESA, for example, or other entities as such.
It is very useful for us, by the way. The balance of trade is in our favor with Africa and the Arab world, and this is good. So let us expand this, let us double our efforts in order to make it much bigger, because $6 billion, nothing. With Europe, we have more than $14 billion exports to Europe. So Africa is in great need to our help and to our. And the good news here that Egypt is the most acceptable state in Africa. We have embassy representatives everywhere in the continent. That's why it reflects its effect on the political life. As you see, Africa is voting with us wherever we are asking in and we are enjoying very strong political relations with Africa. So let us use this for the favor of our trade, for our investment, and for our economy. Another dimension I don't want to miss, because we are hosting in Egypt tens of thousands of Africans studying in our schools, in our universities, in Al-Azhar Sharif. Al-Azhar is doing a very good job in Africa, and we have to make these efforts much more in order to gain more and more opportunities.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, finally, if I may, a final question. Egypt, during its presidency of the African Union, played a critical role in the development and agreement of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. How do you see African nations proceeding with regards to the implementation of the protocols of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement?
I think up till now it's going quite well. We need more knowledge. We need to know what they are producing. We need to tell them what we have as commodities they need. Exchange of experience, exchange of information is very important. And as I said, we have to start thinking seriously to invest in Africa. This will lead us to very good results, inshallah.
Indeed. And of course, the private sector has a great role in this regard. Don't you agree?
Yep, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. Every small effort in Africa pays a lot.
Right, absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Your Excellency Bayoumi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for all your time and your insight, and for joining us on our edition of Africa Today. Still more coming your way from the African continent. This time we move to Kenya, where the country's military has stepped up efforts to evacuate hundreds of people trapped by floods in the country. We have more details in the story.
Hundreds of people in Kenya have died and millions have been affected since heavy rains began in October. Just last week, scientists confirmed that human-caused climate change has made the rain up to 2 times more intense. Kimutai, principal meteorologist at the Kenya Meteorological Department and lead author of the World Weather Attribution Study, said the findings stressed the dangers of continually warming the planet and the need for humanity to cut down emissions, as whatever we're doing is definitely not on track. Tens of thousands of people in northern Kenya have lost livestock, farmland and homes due to the floods described by aid groups as the worst in 100 years. The rains have also caused an increase in cholera and other waterborne diseases in some parts. Kenya's Meteorological Department has warned that heavy rains will continue into the new year. It is urging people living in lowland-prone areas to evacuate. Kenya's military has stepped up efforts to evacuate hundreds of people trapped by raging floods.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this final news item, we wrap up today's edition of Africa Today. We do hope you have enjoyed it. Join us again tomorrow for another edition just after 2 p.m. As for today, you're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Many thanks for joining us.